If you're curious about how to build a business from your heart, this story has everything from collegiate athlete to collegiate marketing to near-death experience to organically building a 7-figure business in under 3 years. We have Amber Lilyestrom on the podcast today, and you're not going to want to miss this one. So keep listening. Hi, I'm Amber Lilyestrom, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, an amazing episode lined up for you today. There are so many things that I want to dive into. Our guest today has built a business almost purely, or maybe even 100% organically up to the 7-figure level, and did it within 2 years. And so the story is amazing, the guest is amazing, and I'm so excited to dive into it. So today we have Amber Lilyestrom to the podcast. So Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you. And one of the things that I want to do is just dive right into, just to give everyone the context of what it is you do, and then we'll kind of go back to the beginning of the story. But can you just briefly tell everybody what it is that you do and who you serve?
Sure. Yep. So I'm a branding strategist and business coach for female entrepreneurs. Really simply put, I think the nuance piece underneath that is that they are typically folks who have a spiritual life, who are trauma survivors in some way, shape, or form. They're consciously aware of that. They're working on their inner journey, and they're ready to align that inner journey with the outer achievements and the ways in which they serve in the world.
I love that. Is that usually going to be an entrepreneur, or are they usually not entrepreneurs, or maybe a mix of everything?
Yeah, no, they're all entrepreneurs. Yeah. They're, or aspiring. Yeah. They want to build a business, and they want to make an income and really truly create their own economies, because they've lived a life of a lot of scarcity, a lot of money stress, and they've just recognized the opportunity that's available to them, and they're wanting to learn ways in which to do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Amazing. So let's go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about how did you fall into the line of work that you're in now? Like, what were you doing before this transition?
Yeah. So before I launched my business back in 2014, I was working as a collegiate marketing professional. I worked in collegiate athletics. And at my alma mater, the University of New Hampshire, it's where I played soccer. And I started my job right upon graduation, essentially as a marketing coordinator. And I mean, I had the coolest job in the world, Brandon. I was shooting t-shirt cannons from the ice into the stands.
Awesome.
I was, doing the human puck at the hockey rink. I was meeting with corporate contracts and creating just customized promotions for them to utilize at our various events. And I was in charge of 7 ticketed sports. I had a very lean budget, and I had to basically make a lot of things happen out of nothing. And I was self-taught. I learned how to do graphic design. I learned how to mentor students. Ultimately, I ended up being, I was an instructor at the University for Sport Marketing, and I left there in 2014 after my daughter was born, and I launched my business from scratch. I will say that I had been into competitive fitness in my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that's relevant is because I was immersed in this group of female entrepreneurs. Some were network marketing professionals. Some had built their own personal brands in the fitness world. And I was fascinated by how they were creating their own economies. I was watching them use the internet, watching them use Facebook, watching them create blogs, watching them share their writerly life, and just noticing, I want more of that. I want this time freedom. At that point in my job, I was working crazy hours, nights and weekends with all these events that I had. I was never home. I was always leaving. And while I loved my job, I wasn't really living my full life. I was just living my job. And so I knew that there was something there. And that was really the spark for me to get curious and start learning. And I enrolled in a program and just really immersing myself in a different reality so I could create it for myself.
I love that. I've heard you mention a couple of times, create your own economy. What does that mean?
Yeah. So what it means is, creating your own way of making money, just very simply put, and having multiple streams, having different ways to, that's one of my favorite things about what we do. It's like, I decided in October that I was going to launch a new program. And, before we knew it, we had an over 6-figure launch with a program that never existed before. We just went and did it. And it happened like in a flash. And I was excited about it. I followed the momentum of it. My team got behind it. We created a challenge. We led people into it. And now we're at week 6 or so in the program. We're sharing the wins. And guess what? These women are now creating their own businesses, changing the dynamic of their own family. And I believe that as entrepreneurs, we have the capacity to change the course of history for ourselves and for the people that we love. My husband was a police officer for 11 years. And in 2017, we retired him from that career. And he's now a podcast producer. He works from home. He picks Ani up from school every day. I drive her to school. Like we had an appointment we went to together on Monday. We can do what we want. We live this very free life now. And we're also doing work that we love, and we're giving back in ways that feel really aligned for us.
Yeah. And my story actually, and obviously because we're in the same space, really follows that same kind of trajectory and purpose and point. So I understand and get all of that stuff. Can we hop back to it for a second to when you were working for, as collegiate marketing,
yeah,
in the marketing department over there.
Yeah.
Was that the same school that you graduated from?
It was. Yeah.
And then what did you graduate? Well, what was your degree in?
Yeah. So I was originally an English journalism major, and then I was in my studies and I learned about the whole concept of if it bleeds, it leads. And meaning, you're ambulance chasers. And if the lead stories have to be where people die, essentially where bad things happen. And there was a part of me that just knew intuitively, that's not what I'm signing up for my life. That does not feel energetically right for me. And I didn't necessarily even have the words to say that back then. It just didn't feel right. And so I knew that I loved to write, and I figured out how to graduate without getting the journalism part of the degree. And so ultimately I took all of the course load. I just didn't do the internship with a newspaper, which I did write for the school paper for a bunch of years and was an editor there, but I just didn't want to go out into the field and do that. And so I ultimately graduated with an English degree. With minors in psychology and also in sport administration. And these were late pivots, like the sports studies thing. I was like, these courses are cool. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wasn't thinking about that. I was so in the present of I want to be the captain of the soccer team, and I'm going to be a leader in the athletic department, which I was. I was the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Council, and I just knew I wanted to make an impact and make a difference. But it's almost like my career didn't exist back then. Yeah. And no wonder I was confused. Like the career that I have now, it wasn't even a thing back in 2000, 2001. And so it's funny to look back on it now and go, oh, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I was building all of the skills with my, my studies, and then also with the career that are feeding my job and my abilities today.
Well, it makes so much sense. And it's, I was actually a D1 athlete as well. So I got a track scholarship to go run. So I know that whole, the whole thing, like the whole deal, the being an athlete, getting a degree, all that stuff. And sometimes like as an athlete, you just go because you want to like play the sport. And so for me, like the whole like education thing was just, okay, this is something I got to do.
It's like, you got to do it.
Running.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
But you picked a great minor, as the minor, I think is what you said, of psychology. And I actually sometimes will even argue psychology might be better than a marketing degree, just because the concepts can be applied no matter what's going on all the time. And I'm sure like as being a coach, I'm sure that played a huge help in like you being like, a better coach, knowing really what's kind of going on and all that stuff. But I'm assuming there's a moment somewhere where something happened for you to like have this career, then all of a sudden decide I need to follow my heart. This isn't what I want. Cause you said there was intuition. So what happened? What was that transition like going from career in the collegiate space to doing what you do now?
So there's two pieces. I think the first was, around 2010, I was feeling that nudge. I was in the fitness space, on just when I had time, and I was tasking myself. Remember the athlete piece. Mm-hmm. So there's always that mindset work behind the scenes for me from day one. I've always been, I was an elite athlete my whole childhood, playing on 3 teams a year round, traveling, going to tournaments, getting in front of college coaches. So, and I also have a dad who is a Division I athlete. My brother ended up being the captain of the track team at UConn. He was a pole vaulter. And so, my mom was a runner and she just didn't have the opportunities when she grew up. They didn't have teams in sports for women in the ways that they do now. So that was always just a part of my family's psyche and just how the standards at which we hold ourselves, like good or bad, it's like great. And also there are obviously challenges to that too. But I was already thinking, I was already dabbling. I remember those who are listening, maybe they know Lori Harder. She's a friend of mine. And I met Lori in the fitness world. And I remember back it must have been like 2011 or so, I reached out to her and I asked, could I write a guest blog post on your website? And at the time I forget what it was even called. It was like Blissfully something, but I wrote, or the Bliss Habit or something like that. But I wrote a blog post, a contribution post. I'm still in my corporate job, just as me, and sent that over there. And so there were little bits and pieces. And I started a Tumblr blog, behind the scenes where I was just writing.
So did you have were you doing it just because you wanted to do it?
I just was doing it because I wanted to do it. Okay, I was doing it, no money. I wasn't making any money. I was just, I think I understood simply because I worked in branding, I supported and helped create so much momentum around the UNH athletics brand. And so I understood branding and I knew I needed to own it and I needed to actually stand for something as Amber Lilyestrom. So I was building my own personal brand out in ways that I didn't even quite fully understand yet. And I didn't know what I wanted to do and I didn't know how to monetize. So I just knew create content, be a helper, put out other people's quotes that are inspiring to you. And I love it because I see on my Facebook time hop thing, it shows you the things you used to create and what you used to share. And I was laying the foundation in ways I didn't even consciously understand just yet.
So cool.
Back then. Yeah. And so then the real catalyst was there were shifts happening in our department and the universe was just on the job, just giving me a lot of discomfort, a lot of things that were really not that fun happening in our department. And I just, I could feel that I was needing to make a change, but I was pregnant in 2013. I was pregnant with our first child and we went through fertility treatment to conceive. And so now I'm pregnant and, I'm doing the best that I can. I got put on modified bed rest at one point because I was just so uncomfortable and I'm working from home and I thought I was just going to lose my mind because I'd never been locked in my house before, which is also hilarious now in 2020 as we have this conversation. But, I'm trying to do this thing and I'm just in this very uncomfortable life transition, Brandon. It's I know that I need to do something else, but I have no idea how. And I'm still living this other reality, but I feel like an imposter there because it's not who I want to be anymore. I had outgrown it and I still was trying to make myself fit and grow in it. So it's this very uncomfortable time. And so then on the day of my daughter's birth in 2013, I ended up having a near-death experience. And it was a profound spiritual awakening. It's something I say to my community, I don't recommend your awakenings be almost dying. But apparently I was a hard sell on that. And I needed to have something that shook me awake to the truth, which was I had known all the days of my life that I wanted to write books. I wanted to speak. I wanted to breathe life into others. I wanted to be a force for good, to share the story of overcoming childhood sexual abuse, which is a big part of my story too. And testifying in court as a 5-year-old and learning what I learned way back then in the early days of my life. I knew that I was here for more. And while I loved what I was doing, I wasn't really doing it. I was still kind of hiding in the safe harbor of my alma mater, which had given me 14 years of education, 2 degrees. I mean, a whole lifetime, had been lived there. And it was time for me to leave the nest, but I wasn't really taking the steps. And so I had this experience. It shook me awake to the truth. It took about 8 months after that day, after Ani's birth, where I did end up launching my business. I had one client when I gave my notice. Obviously there's a lot in between that I can share, but that was really the culmination of that. That was the culmination, of this moment. And I knew that I couldn't pretend that I didn't know it. It was time for me to step in.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs in some level know, you just know there's going to be something more. Because I remember when I worked for my dad, it was an easy job and I made great money, but I was just this isn't, intuition. I just internally knew this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. So I totally get that. But can I ask you about the near-death experience? Like,
Yeah.
what was it about that near-death experience that left you with like that knowing of, okay, enough is enough? I mean, was there a vision or something, or was it just like the fact that you almost died and you said, I don't want to waste my life anymore? Or what was it?
It was what happened inside. So I really think about it as sort of being this like space between. It was this invitation for me. And the first thing that I saw and felt in my vision, in my body, was a sense of just frustration, like honestly, like a sense of rage, a feeling of knowing that I was not doing what was so clear to me, and I say that I hope that in me sharing this part of my story, anyone who's listening to this, who's carried a vision with you for longer than you can remember, because that was the truth for me, that you hear me say this and listen, like really let that resonate for you, that your vision is not a mistake. It's not, you didn't make it up because you're greedy or you're selfish or you're power hungry, or it's like, I couldn't have made that up if I tried. I was a 5-year-old playing with my Barbies when the first time I had the idea of that, like I felt a voice talk to me and tell me this, and I didn't tell that part of my story, honestly, until very recently in these last few years, because I thought I was crazy. You heard a voice talking to you and you're playing with your Barbies. Like, first of all, how would you remember that? But I do, I remember a lot of things that people in my life have told me I don't remember. And I think learning how to trust ourselves and to trust the voices and to trust what's coming through us is really courageous. And it also gets to be the guide, the North Star that leads us forth. So I had that clarity, and it felt terrible. It felt like death. I was in this place. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't conscious. I wasn't there in the room. My body was, but I was not. I was somewhere else. And this is what I saw. And then the beautiful thing is that just started to sort of like dissolve away. And I had an out of body. I saw my parents in the waiting room at the hospital. My mom was walking back and forth, and my dad was sitting in the chair he had this little digital camera, and he was looking through his little settings, trying to look at, the pictures he had taken. And then I saw Ben, my husband, in the room where we had left from, and he had all his scrubs on and everything. And he too was looking at his camera, trying to get the settings. It makes me just want to like burst into tears because it was so beautiful. Like these people were there, these people in my life that I have this gift of having a relationship with and having this profound love for, and also like that I get to receive. Yeah. And it just, I felt the whole thing in that moment, and just the magnificence of what's possible, what that love really is. And it was just, it's beyond words, in the human language to capture what it felt like in my body. But ultimately it was a surrender, and I gave myself over to it completely. And I will say, I did not have a strong spiritual understanding or even life at that time. I was not religious. And I remember thinking like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, I just kind of went, okay. Like I fully surrendered in that space. My soul surrendered. And it was literally like a switch flipped, and I was conscious again. It was like the surrender and then awake. And the anesthesiologist was behind me, and he said, go, go, go. And the surgeon was on my hip, and she started the C-section. And what made it happen ultimately was it was a high spinal tap. So it froze my diaphragm. And, these things happen, and I couldn't breathe. And so I passed out because I wasn't breathing on my own. I remember the bag valve mask being on my face and seeing the nurse's hand and hearing it get really quiet in the room and thinking, the music's not playing anymore. Like, what's happening? And then hearing the surgeon say to the anesthesiologist, like, what can I do to help? And I knew at that moment, like I was in some trouble. And then that whole experience unfolded after that. And then Ani was born, and she was healthy and perfect and okay. And Ben came back, and nobody knew, not even me, really what happened. I couldn't really understand it all. It would take time for me to really unravel it and to really understand it and to integrate it all. But it was profound. It was a quantum leap in consciousness. There's no question about it.
That's unbelievable. And it's, I tell people all the time, because even going back to when you talked about when you were 5 and hearing voices, I'm like, I believe in all that stuff and experience all that stuff. And I tell people to sit in the silence and quiet the thinking mind, because what happens is those things are gifts, and I don't know where it comes from, but every human has the ability to receive those things. But then we let the thinking mind tell us this is what normal is, this is what realistic,
Yes.
this is blah, 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 which is it was all created either by society or experiences or whatever. And then we let that be the dictator, when in fact we have more than our five senses. We have 6 or
Yes.
7. And if you guys can tap into that, you get these profound experiences and knowledge that it can be gifted to you to guide you on where you want to go. I do have one question. When you said you surrendered, in that moment, were you aware of the direction you need to take your life and surrendering to that? Is that what you mean by surrender?
I mean surrender in a comprehension of, like I've been trying to control it all. I missed the good stuff. Like I get it. It was a surrender like that. Like okay. It was just I got it. And
so beautiful.
Yeah. It's incredible. And so I feel a responsibility, in a way, though that's probably the human way to interpret it all.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm consciously aware of that, but I do feel like it's important to share, that the way I sort of extrapolate it out in my logical way that I tend to function through is, if that is really what's there.
Yeah.
If that's what's there when we get there.
Yeah.
Then what are we so afraid of? Like we don't need to be afraid. Like we just get to live, like being alive in a body, getting to have those senses, getting to feel love and excitement and even pain. I mean, getting to feel it all, it's a gift. And so that changes the way you live when you understand that the living is the gift.
100%. And I work with a shaman, and he tells us all the time, he's like, today is a good day to die. And when you guys understand that message, you'll finally learn how to live.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And what I've learned from that is to like not fear the death. It's just a part of what we're going through, because focusing on that takes away from the experience that you're having now. And, with COVID and everything going on, I had a friend who's deathly afraid of getting COVID. And he's in his house, he's in fear and all that stuff. And I'm just kind of like, it's a thing. It's here. We get it or we don't. Like, it's not going to stop me from doing the things that I want to do, living a life. Even if I just have to be in the backyard, at least I don't have the fear of it existing in my reality. And so,
right. And a virus has a vibration.
Yeah.
There are frequencies to all of these things. That's real. I mean, it's studied, it's quantum physics, it's science. So if we understand that, I find, you don't have to know what that frequency is. You can understand it, and when you're at a different level within yourself. And so it's like, what is that inner work? And it really is an inner journey. That's the whole thing. It's about making peace with you and coming home to the truth of you. And I needed to do that. And so I got a really direct invitation and opportunity to do that.
I love that. And I love the whole thing of like the virus's vibration. It's a frequency too. And so is fear. And
that's right.
Fear will bring down the immune system. It brings everything down to a very susceptible level too. And so
that's right.
Just not being afraid of any of that stuff allows you to operate in full expansion with full power. And like you said, it's a beautiful, beautiful place to operate from. So once you had that experience and you kind of surrendered, you said it took you 6 months to get started. But what did you do to get started? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So I cried a lot and felt frustrated. I called my friends and complained about how I didn't want to go back to my job and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And now I had this baby and I really don't want to go back now. Like I couldn't have understood that. I remember saying to my boss before, oh yeah, I'll come back to work. Like, yeah, I'm always going to work, like tough girl over here. And then I've got this baby and I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to leave her, it's just complete shift.
Yeah.
And, but I did have to go back to work, 3.5 months in, I didn't have something to replace my income. I did actually purchase a camera and I started doing photography. So that was a little kind of side hustle thing I was doing. I was doing engagement shoots and baby shoots and things. And I had this fresh little baby. So it was really fun to take pictures of her. And my mom was a photographer and had a photography studio and brand back and my parents just both have like that artistic eye. And apparently I inherited it. So I enjoyed doing that. And I started doing weddings into the next year. And so I thought when I was in this runway of like, okay, I'm going to build my own business. At first I enrolled in a program and I thought it was going to be for my photography business, but I knew in my mind, like, this is not scalable. Like this is not going to work. And ultimately, nice try. This isn't actually what you're supposed to be doing. Like it's a cop out. So I was like tap dancing doing photography, but then I did a program. I started working with a coach and I just bumbled my way through building my little Squarespace website, calling myself a branding coach, recognizing that there weren't actually many people who were doing that. If you type in branding coach on Google, I'm like 1 or 2. And so I laid the tracks for that SEO, not understanding what I was doing. I don't want to pretend that I was thinking I was so smart. I just was like, this is a differentiator. Everybody's a business coach, but I don't really care about that. I think branding's really exciting. I believe branding is the sacred opportunity to be who we really are. Like I have a very different perspective on branding than the average bear. And I want to use that to help people in a more robust way. And so I just started doing that. And I was in the group that I was part of this program. And it was a very, open, generous group at the time. And so I was offering free website reviews and I was doing like free coaching mini sessions, and helping people. And I remember the first person who at the end of the call, I want to say I wasn't pitching. I just was helping them like, okay, was that helpful? Great. Okay, bye. Like not a good salesperson at that point. Like I was so nervous. But I remember Melissa and she said, this was so helpful. Can I hire you? And I took my breath away and I went, like my voice went up like 15. I'm like, you want to hire me? Like just, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing to think back to. And she said, yeah. And she laughed and I was like, okay. And I had to like pull up my Word doc that I had put my packages in of what I was going to sell that I worked on. And oh man, it was not graceful, but God bless. Melissa said yes. I made my first sale. It was a coaching package of 3 months. She said yes. And that next day, so it was a Thursday night, the next day I went to work and I had this uncharacteristically awful meeting with my boss's boss. Yeah. It was like the worst conversation I could have ever. I don't understand how it happened. He's like a second dad to me. It was so strange. And I also knew that was the universe saying, you got to go, girl. Like, know what you want to do. And so I was fuming. I walked back to my office. I started putting stuff in my purse. And I remember my secretary came to my door and she looked in and she goes, are you doing what I think you're doing? And I said, yep. And she goes, you go, girl. And so then I got home and I said to Ben, I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm quitting. And he's just like, okay, honey, whatever you say, and on Monday of that I gave my notice and my boss was super happy. Everybody was so supportive. I will be honest. I did say I led with, and this isn't a lie, but it's almost a half truth. Mm-hmm. I'm leaving to be home with my daughter. Mm. Now that was true. Yeah. I left out the part of building the empire, retiring my husband, helping people all over the world. I didn't tell them about that part because that small detail. I just kind of left that one off the table because I just didn't think they would really get it. I was too afraid to own it, and it's okay. And so I launched this business. And by the time I left, so I stayed for another month because they needed me. No, it wasn't like there was a person to step in. Yeah. I had 4 clients and. Wow. And how'd you get those clients? The same way? Yeah. Like word of mouth, Facebook, being consistent, just showing up, talking about what I was talking about, writing good copy. Is this just like you're on your own brand, just putting stuff out there, helping that type of thing? Okay. Got it. Yeah. Just like my Facebook timeline, just gotcha. Yeah. This is what I'm doing. And and just showing up and knowing that this is what I'm here to do. Just like really owning that and trusting that. Yeah. And being consistent, just really being consistent. I started my little list again, like for all of us, that it was me 4 times and like my mom, my husband, my best friend, those were my first 7 subscribers. Yeah. And then I built it and I launched, and we can get into this, but I'll just share this. I think this is important. Pretty quickly thereafter launching my business and leaving my corporate job, I did like one of those summit things, right? The I'd use a Facebook group, and this is back in 2014. Right. And I was just so ballsy. Like I just asked a bunch of like really amazing people that I admired their work. I just told them like, I think you're incredible. I learned so much from you. I'm doing this thing. It's my first time doing it. Like, would you be open to an interview that I can share with my community? And I built this Facebook group. I had 250 people sign up for it right out of the gate, because I was leveraging these other people's audiences and the audience that but I had started it back in like 2010, right? I was on my Facebook, I was putting stuff out there. I was having conversations. I was asking people questions. I was being consistent. And so now I'm doing this thing, and it started to snowball, and I started building it and building these Facebook communities and growing that little list. And I was patient, I was patient.
There's so many lessons in everything that you're talking about right now. And one of the things that I always tell people is just, you guys don't understand that there might be 100 steps and you might only see 2 of them.
Yes.
And by sitting there waiting to get it perfect without not taking action, without doing whatever, you're literally delaying how long it's going to take you to get through those 100 steps, because you just don't know what you don't know. You don't see what you can't see.
Right.
And one of the things that I think has made me successful is that I just do. And if it doesn't, and without expectation, because if you have the expectation, then you're just like, oh, it's a failure, when instead you can look at it as a lesson. And you're very much the same way. I'm curious, do you think being an athlete allowed you to have that kind of outlook on life? Or do you think 100%. You had that outlook on life that allowed you to be an athlete and an entrepreneur?
I've been an athlete for as long as I've lived. I mean, I was doing gymnastics when I was 18 months old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like literally, my mom was coaching at this gymnastics gym, and there's pictures of a pamphlet, an advertisement. And I'm there like doing scales on the beam with diapers, like sticking out of my little leotard, my little like pigtails, holding my mom's hands,
so
like my
cute.
little leg up. Yeah. So it was an identity for me. Being an athlete was an identity. So then you look under the column of athlete. Okay. It wasn't just like be an athlete on your little town rec league. It was, no, my vision the whole time was Division I athlete. I got recruited to Division II and III schools. I was like, no, thank you. Like, I'm not interested. No. I wanted to go to the big school. I wanted to have that scholarship. So I held myself to that standard the entire time. And it wasn't that, I didn't have times when I wasn't successful, but my ship was pointed in that direction from the whole way. And my parents supported that identity. And they held us to a standard. They said, you guys are not going to play in your sports teams unless you're on the honor roll. And there's just something in me that like went, oh, okay, honor roll, high honor roll, like bring it on. I love a challenge. I've always loved a challenge. I love to push myself that way. And I think as an athlete, you learn that skill and that resiliency, and you learn about the gears within yourself that you can't, exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, you learn how to push through pain. You learn how to persevere through loss. You learn how to be a good sport to people, when you have a team and somebody's not doing their job, but not to be a jerk to them, like how to elevate people. And I was always a natural born leader that way. I was always the captain of the team. I played center mid. So I'm all, vision is sort of like my superpower.
Right.
And I think that has played into my ability to perform as an entrepreneur. And I'm scrappy, Brandon. Like I'm like, bring it on. Let's do it. You want to figure it out. And I love helping people figure out their thing and then find the way to create it, no matter what resources we have available to us, just finding that way.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And because like I did track and cross country, and everything that you're describing, same exact experience, how to be a leader, how to be resilient, how to pick yourself up off the ground. Like, I mean, there were times where I was like undefeated, never lost, got a hip injury, came back, and then just got smashed to the ground when I came back. And like that messes with the head. And then there's also been moments, and you have to overcome that. There's been moments where I've been like $40,000 in debt after doing $500,000 a year, and that messes with the head too. But
totally,
the scenario in which things are happening is different, but what the results and the things that you have to go through are almost the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, I
so,
had to learn how to walk 3 times over, literally. I had 3
wow,
huge knee surgeries. And
wow.
you know what it's like to sit in that training room and watch
Mhm.
all of your teammates like go out to practice and watch them in spring training and all of that. And
Yep.
I'm there rehabbing, learning how to bend my leg and how to walk.
Yeah.
And so that I always forget about those major chapters of my life, but that happened in between basically almost every season of my collegiate career.
Yeah.
And my senior year, I'm the captain. I have a torn VMO muscle and I'm running the fitness test. And I just made a decision like, I can't get this surgery. I can't fix this until after our season. So I'm just going to play. You know, I got some cortisone shots. I'm like, I'm just going to play and lead my team to the best of my capacity, my physical ability. So I wouldn't practice some days, or I would just be there on the sideline because my coach didn't want to use me on practice. He wanted to save me for the game. And just the resiliency of that. Like I would have been a starter. I couldn't play. You know, there were so many times I couldn't play because I could hardly even run. But that didn't stop me. So I think, you know, look at those bits and pieces in your story that have in other venues of life that are super applicable to your life as an entrepreneur that maybe you haven't been giving yourself credit for.
Because we all have them.
We all have
every single
them.
one of us. And it's funny how similar even our stories continue to be, because I broke my back as a runner, and I had to, again, I had to learn how to re-walk, literally learn how to walk and then run, and in the training room with the people, with my team coming in and all of that stuff. But that also, we recorded a podcast episode earlier today talking about the lens in which you see the world. And I think if you're able to, like, I think being an athlete has both helped give us the lens to see the world of things either are happening to us or they're happening for us. And it really puts on that lens of everything's happening for us. And you really learn the gifts of a lot of these things that most people would like classify as down moments or whatever.
Right.
But the way in which you see the world literally shifts everything, like every single thing. And I think being an athlete has both given us that beautiful lens. But there's one more thing that I'm kind of picking up on your story that I agree with 100%, is that you didn't let the world tell you what was normal, what was right, what was wrong, what you should do, shouldn't do. And I get the question all the time, how do I get in alignment? Because I believe that if you're in alignment, things will just flow. And it's crazy how true this has been in my life. But it sounds like it's the same thing to you. Like when you got started, you just kind of like you kept leaning more and more and more into what you wanted to do. Like you had a job, then you had your daughter and you had that experience. Then you're like, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. And you kind of dipped your toes into it. So you're not totally, but you're like more in the alignment. And then it just kind of got more in alignment, more in alignment, more in alignment. But was that you just kind of listening to that internal voice or intuition to kind of like get to that place? Is that kind of how you figure like it got into alignment?
Yeah, it was. And I think the other part that's actually really important to speak to was me accepting what it was I wanted and actually giving myself permission to go do it. I think that we probably know exactly very clearly what it is that we want, but we create a lot of stories and barriers that keep us from just going and doing that thing. And again, it's all a gift, you know, it helps us build the muscles. We put the reps in, we learn, you know, when you lean into resistance, you get a lot of information there. So I was absolutely, you know, trending toward more of that, and then believing, like being credible to myself with the time and the persistence and the learning that was happening. But I think the biggest part of my story and what my book that's coming out in the spring called Paddle Home is about is really about self-acceptance. You know, it's really, I help. My core problem that I address with my clients is the feeling of unworthiness. And the way that I help them with that is by helping them align with their purpose and create a life that is in full support of that purpose.
I love that. Yeah, because I mean, without that, you can't be in alignment. Like if you can't even accept what it is that you think you're worthy of, because you might be worthy of so much stuff, but you're never going to get it if you don't even think it's possible for you. Right.
That's right.
You can't even get in alignment for any of that. So I mean, I love all of that. But if I remember correctly, you started your first program around 2015. Is that correct? Or is to kind of like launch the business of the business that you have today, you kind of launched in 2015. Is that?
Yeah. Well, so 2014, I was doing one-to-one coaching, and I was actually doing web design as well. It was like a package deal. It was again, I wanted to do brand coaching, but I didn't. And I think this was a smart move. I knew that the clients were going to say yes if I was going to do implementation for them too. At the time, I hadn't established myself as a well-known branding coach yet, or a mindset. I hadn't earned that badge yet.
Right.
And so I knew I needed to use the skills that I had, which was in design. I had done all of that. I was actually in the files today for some reason, looking for something. And I saw all of these posters that I had designed for our athletic department. That was like, these are so cute. Oh my gosh. These are amazing. And so I knew they would say yes to it. And to me, it was more important at that time to make those sales and to support my family, with what I could, which I did replace my income very quickly. I made $100,000 in my first full year of being in business. And that was my goal. It was the benchmark I set for myself. I launched my first program in the fall of 2014. I had 3 people who paid for it. It was $297. It's called Beautiful Brand, Beautiful You. I learned a lot from it. I spent a lot of money on getting these awesome designed PDFs that look super professional. Yeah. And I actually still use the content in some of my programs today because they were beautifully done and the content is solid. And I'm like, this was so good. Geez, I really did know what I was doing. And then in 2015, I continued always doing the one-to-one coaching in the background. I was still doing some of the design stuff. And I launched another program called Launching Brand You. And I had, I think, like a $15,000 launch, which was a big deal. I was beside myself. And I remember I was at a Tony Robbins event in New Jersey, and I was getting sales while I was there. And I was lit, right? Like I'm listening to Tony and I'm just like, yeah, like cha-ching, checking my inbox and like doing, I don't think we even had stories yet, doing whatever I was doing on Instagram. Yeah. And then I launched it again and it didn't go quite as well. Again, remember, all organic. This is there's no ad situation happening here whatsoever.
Right.
And it took some time, but I didn't launch the program that really brought in a lot of money until the fall of 2017 or the summer of 2017. And that was when I launched a mastermind. I had been doing all this one-to-one coaching and I was selling large packages. I was doing $8,000 packages, leading up into that. Yeah. And then in that, I just knew it was time to create something else. I had my first live event in the spring of 2017, the Ignite Your Soul Summit. We had 100 people show up. I tried to sell from stage. I did it terribly, made no sales, but I didn't care. I was just happy I did the event and I had 100 people in the room. Yeah. So then in 2017, I launched this mastermind and we had like a $70,000 week. I had never done that before. It ended up being an over 6-figure program, multiple 6-figure program. And it's evolved. I still have masterminds today and I've launched other programs in between, and my Ignite Your Soul Summit has happened a couple other times. But yeah, it took time. It took time, but the one-to-one coaching really paid the bills. We did, and I scaled it fast because I didn't have that much time. I literally had a baby at home. And I think this is another important piece. My daughter was 9 months old when I left my corporate career to be home. We didn't have childcare. I was doing it. So I would have a 2-hour block of time in the morning and another 2-hour block of time until she dropped that first nap. Yeah. I would work for 2 hours, literally like a day. I would get up super early, work as much as I could, have my nap time window, and then I would work in the night. But I didn't have more than like 15 hours, 12 hours in a week to work at the beginning of my business.
Yeah. I saw on your website that you call it like the hashtag nap hustle. It's
the nap time hustle. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. But I can't even imagine doing all of that like with kids. I've been fortunate enough where my wife has been a stay-at-home mom probably since my son was born. So I never really had to balance both of those. But it's got to be incredibly difficult because you're already tired. Like you have sleepless nights, you have diapers changing. Yeah. And like when they're done for nap, all you want to do is to take a nap, but to have that dedication and that tenacity to just push through it and just get this thing going is unbelievable.
I was so fired up though. Like I was so ignited for my vision. Like I just knew what I wanted to do. And so I was psyched. Like when I got to sit down at the desk and do my work, I was just like, let's go. I knew how to get myself in that state and get elevated for it. So yeah, I definitely had stress and, I'd be sitting there with a monitor and she'd be like waking up early and I'm like, can you just excuse me for a minute? I'd like bring her the Peppa Pig iPad in her crib and be like, there was a time where she was doing like baby powder snow angels in her room on the monitor. And I'm like trying to do a coaching session. I'm just like, oh my gosh, but I think the other really important part of this is I'm a mom first.
Yeah.
And my first dream of my life was to be a mom. And so I didn't want to miss the moments I couldn't get back, Brandon. I didn't want to miss the first steps. I didn't want to miss the first words. And so if my business grew slower because of that, great. You know, I don't get a do-over on Ani's babyhood, on her childhood.
Yeah. And I actually had a moment of that last night when I'm like kind of going through old pictures on my phone, and so I have two daughters. They're 1 and soon to be 5, and my son is 7. And I remember I always had this story in my head of I didn't enjoy the first year or two because it's always so much work. And then I got a little emotional last night because I started looking back at the pictures of when she was 1.5, 2. And I'm like, oh my God, she's so cute. And I'm like, I don't remember this. And I don't remember this. And I almost wonder how much of that story I was telling myself of how tired I am, and it's telling myself I don't enjoy this, I'm wondering how much of the story is responsible for me not remembering some of these things. And it's just shoot, I need to start shifting the perspective because it goes by so incredibly fast.
I mean, I have these moments this could make us both just weep right now, but I just, we stopped by a mall. We live in New Hampshire. So this is funny, but we just don't have real normal stores where we live, which you wouldn't think in 2020 but we really don't. We don't have a normal mall. Right. So we stopped at this mall coming back from an appointment in Massachusetts the other day, and we went to the Disney store. And I had this thought, this might be the last Christmas we go to the Disney store for her. When we go trick-or-treating, I go, we have maybe 5 of these left.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's real. And so let's not miss it. Let's not be in jobs we hate. Let's not be, beating ourselves up. Let's not try to get these goals that kill us. Let's live a really rooted and aligned life. Let's be in our joy. And my business has been the doorway to allow that in so many ways. And I am so infinitely grateful for that fact.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, think about you're totally right. Cause if you think back, just go back the last 2 or 3 years, can anyone listening right now tell me what deadlines you hit? Can you just name 3? Can you? Yeah. No, but you're probably going to be able to name memories with your kids and all the things that they did and all of that stuff. And that the deadlines you'll never remember. So why are we focusing on deadlines when we could be focusing on the memories? And I love that. And I think even today I can do a better job of that. It's just with 3 kids, I always tell myself, well, there's more bills and it's more expensive and it's more whatever. So it's very easy to snap out of it, but it's so true. It's I don't know if you know Mel Abraham or not, but
oh, I do. He's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I love him. And so he was telling me a story about when he had his son and he was building his business. And he said it was very easy for me to tell myself I'm doing this for my son. But he goes, a 3-year-old doesn't care about what things that you have or whatever. They care about you and having you. And that's the things that you're going to remember and they remember. And it's oh, man, it's so powerful. Yeah. And yeah, I tell myself all the time, I'm doing this for them. But at the end of the day, what we're doing here should free us the time free us the time to go be able to spend that with them and create those memories with them. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would kind of want to get into and maybe shift the conversation to a little more tactic is I think right around 2014, 15 is when you kind of started your program. If I read correctly, you hit your first $1 million in 2017. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So 2 to 3 years and you did it all organically. And to me, this is always so impressive because we use a lot of paid advertising in our stuff, and our organic is not great, but it's there and it works and it's fine. But to hear you in 2 to 3 year period, build a 7-figure business organically, just oh my gosh.
I never thought of it like that. Thanks for saying that in that way. I never thought of it like that. Because I'm just trying to grow. Yeah. And so as athletes, we're well, we won, but we didn't win the championship yet. And so cool. Yeah, I'm the captain, but my team we need to score more goals. We got to play better. So I'm always doing that, of okay, we hit that target. We had that 6-figure launch with that brand new product we've never even tested. We just took it, made it, let's go. Oh, great. Okay. We did that. I mean, and also I think it's important to note, it was that program, the one we just did, there was 1,000 people in this Facebook group, but the active participants that signed up for the challenge was about 420 people. And we still ended up doing that, having that result.
That's crazy, because 420 is not a lot when you're talking like six.
Not a lot.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
I mean, admittedly, I'm like, we need to do more ads, guys.
Yeah.
So these very smart people, my friends, are killing it with that. And we should probably step into that. We're growing into that, but also I'm psyched. I'm like, look what we're able to do. And it is organic and is authentic. And it feels really good with what we've created.
I mean, it's because look back and you hear all these stories, people building these businesses or people that blow up really fast or whatever. I haven't heard a single one that did it without any advertising. Like I'm looking back at all these people that I just pop in my head. Oh yeah, they did it fast. But there's always ads involved. And we, we're like, and cause we were in a mastermind together. And so my battle of like having this brand and switching to a personal brand, which is really me like owning my message.
Yeah.
And I think we've had to build up a brand with paid advertising. And so now like trying to figure out how to organically grow into a more personalized message has been a little difficult, or not difficult, but it's just kind of like, it's uncharted territory for us. Yeah. And so we're kind of like figuring it out. So for you, having already gone through that path of organically, what do you think it was? Like, why do you think that growth happened? Because there's also a ton of people that try to do things organically and can't. So what do you think it was that kind of like allowed that kind of growth organically for you?
So, one of the things that I say to my students all the time is pay attention to the people that you follow and why. Like, why do you follow that person? Why do you watch their stories every day? Why do you look forward to seeing it? Why do you love that musician? What do you love about their music? Like we spend a lot of time getting into the psychographics, right, of ourselves and what compels me to connect with somebody on something. Why do I love this person's books and their writing and their poetry? Like, why? Right. Why? So if you look at that, you're going to get information back that's going to go, those are some consistencies. And therefore, I should probably take note and show up that way in my brand. Because if it's resonating for me, and it seems to be resonating with some people that follow them too, then if I share myself in that way, not to be manipulative, not to be like overly strategic, like it's being you in a way that feels authentic because you're attracted to it, you're aligned with it, like you. So in my personal brand, I'm just me, which is, me. It's so hard for me to characterize myself. It's like we can't like read the label from inside the jar, like I'm just being myself. I think some of the virtues or the values are, I know how to get people in momentum. I know how to help people fire it up and take action. I love really well. Like I love people. I think that's the thing. I love people. I love going to a store and just how are you today? What's going on in your world? Or making a little joke just to kind of like crack someone's shell and just be someone who cares about them. Gary Vee talks about all the time, like care. Right. What's your number one strategy? Care. Here's another one. Don't be lazy. Put the reps in. Like, are you like such a queen that you can't send a DM to somebody, that you can't make it personable, like that you have to automate every single thing in your world, that you're not actually like in the sandbox with people? Yeah. I think that's one little bit of a disservice. I think that's been communicated out there, but there's a missing link in that communication path. So we have people who have built these huge brands, right? That are like, they couldn't possibly respond to all of the communication, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't respond to some of it. Right. Yeah. And I think that to me feels out of integrity. And so I'm like, hey, okay, let's go. Let's talk. What's going on? I'm a coach. Like I identify as that. And a coach talks to their player. Their coach knows the player. And so I'm in a program, we have like 50 people in this program right now. I know them. I take the time to read their homework. When I'm giving examples, I give 15 different examples for 15 different people's things just in a sentence. You could do it for this, right? I love caring about people. I love showing up for people. I'm not above it. One of my greatest teachers jobs that I had, one of my greatest jobs that was a really essential teacher for me was while I was a college athlete, I couldn't afford to go on spring break. And I definitely wasn't going to ask my mom and dad, like, no way, money has always a challenge for my parents. I wasn't going to be like, hey, I want to go to Cancun. Right. No. So I stayed on campus and I worked for the housekeeping department. And I worked they had a high school basketball games that so I would give out tickets, or I would, I just worked there. I'd sweep the popcorn out of the stands afterwards. Yeah. And that like being the person who's willing to do the hard stuff, it's like you learn a lot from that. And so when you're the custodian of your business, yes, you bring people in to help, but and I know you're this way too. I am not above anything. I might not be super skilled at certain things. And so it's probably not the best to put me in there, but I'm not above anything at all. I'll lick all the envelopes and write the addresses on it. This is my business, right? This is like what we're doing together. And I think that's just a core value for me. And so I consider it that way. Like I'm in my DMs, I'm in there talking to people. I do a lot of things where it's like, DM me for the link and, we'll send back something we've copied, but we're talking to them.
Right.
We're actually communicating with them because we care about them. I mean, I love making contact with people. I love knowing people and showing them like, you aren't just a number to me. You're not just a number on the screen. You're actually a person with a dream.
Well, and I think that's so important because nowadays, I think a lot of people get into this space because they think it's quick money. They're like, oh, let's put a course together. They just don't realize how much work it actually is. And then the people that do, like, and a lot of people will quote unquote get scammed by things because the coach just doesn't show up for them. And a lot of, there's just a lot of that stuff, but flipping it, which is what we do. We're very much in the same way, operate the same way in which you're talking about, because we get people in our programs that are talking about like, you just care. That's so refreshing. And although you're not doing it to try to be different, but it is being different because that's just the industry kind of has taken a left turn in some ways, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so that allows us to kind of stand out. But what I love about what you're describing is also being in the trenches. And I love that diagram of like a leader, and there's all these people pulling a tray, and there's like a leader and he's like hitting, like whipping them versus the leaders in the front pulling the thing. And I think that's what it is. And that's very much the way that I operate within my team is we're going to be in the trenches with you and doing that. And we had an experience actually on Instagram where we're kind of like testing out responsibilities on our team. So like, here, you're responsible for this. And I started to realize that my team member was DMing people, but the people were assuming it was me. And then they were responding back. And I was like, no, like you're not going to speak pretending that it's me. Just sign your name. It's simple. Just sign your name. You can DM people and talk to them, but they need to know that it's not me. They need to know that it's you and you represent us and all of that stuff. So I love all of that. When it comes to content, is it the same type of philosophy? Like just watch what people are doing and then find your version of it and do it and speak your message? Is it like when you're creating content, is it similar, different?
No, content is me. It comes from here out. So, that is it. I just was asked this question in an interview before this, and she's like, how do you streamline your content? And I said,
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
I don't. I create it. I create it in real time, way more than you probably would want to even hear me say out loud. But I really live close to the stream and to the pulse of my own living. And that, I think here's something that's important to say.
Yeah.
My life goal is not to be the most successful online marketer that there is.
Yeah.
My life goal is to be, I want to be a writer. I want to be a writer and a creator and someone who, and also, yes, like a mentor, someone to walk with on the path. Like as a coach, and I say this to my clients all the time, I do not have your answers. Yeah. You do. And I'm here to hold the mirror up and to walk next to you on the path. And sometimes I'm going to have to pull you ahead. And sometimes I'm going to have to push you from behind and say, come on, let's go. We can do this, right? That's what teachers do. That's what the best mentors of our lives do. If you think back to those coaches and those teachers we've had, and I want to be one of those people in people's lives, And so that is just what's in integrity for me. And so, I mean, I literally, this will maybe blow your hair back. I write my Sacred Sunday emails on Sacred Sunday. Basically almost every week. And here's why. Because I sit down on Thursday or on Monday or on Tuesday and I'm just like, I'm going to be a completely different person by Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to say. And it's a ritual. It's like church for me. I get to write like this love letter to my community with my little tea with a little song on a quiet Sunday morning. And of course, like I don't do that all the time, but I've created my life in such a way so that I have these holy moments for myself where I get to do it. It really is holy for me. And so I think, that's not for everyone. Right. And that's certainly someone would say that's not scalable. But it's like, why is that bad?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think there was one moment in the mastermind that we were a part of. And I'm just like, you said something. It's like, geez, I have so much respect for you, and realizing it and standing up for it. And you said something along the lines of, guys, I just have to tell you, there's been people in the mastermind who are doing some certain way. And I thought that was the way that I had to do it too. And it kind of put me in this funk. And you said, I'm just letting you guys know, no more of that. This is the life that I want. I want to be here by the pond or the lake in my backyard. I want to be here working from my balcony with my daughter. This is my why. And you start showing all this stuff. You're like, I don't care about building this big, huge thing. I just want to do what I want to do. And you weren't blaming anybody else. It was more of just taking responsibility of the fact that you kind of got derailed, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I think so many people need to hear that, because I think that's the problem with a lot of people. Not finding happiness or not finding the growth that they're looking for. I don't mean just business growth, just growth as an individual, growth in relationship, growth in love, growth in any way. It's just getting derailed by this is what other people are doing, or this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is whatever, and just not fully embracing that. And when I heard you say that, I was like, it was like mic drop. It was so beautiful. And I think and to hear you like take an approach to content that way is just amazing. I think more people need to do that.
It's what you were talking about earlier. Like it's available. And so like I write my Instagram content basically in real time. Like I write it every morning before I drive her to school, and I just go, oh, what's here today? And it's so beautiful. Like there's no fight. There's no resistance. There's no battle. It's just like, oh, hey, what's on my heart today? Like, what are we feeling today, collective? Like what's there? And then it just comes through, and I just share it, and it just feels beautiful. And I love it when it's something that ends up getting shared a lot, because it's words that touch people's heart, and it resonates for them. And sometimes it doesn't. And it's just, and that's okay too, but I just want to continue to show up, right? Like to chop the wood and carry the water and stay in the conversation, and know that sometimes you're going to do something that's going to just be a smash hit. And sometimes you're going to do stuff that's going to be a bomb. And neither of those things means anything about your worth. You were born worthy. You came here that way. And your work is just a way for you to express the truth of yourself. And your business gets to be a portal for you. I mean, the way that you're doing it, Brandon, you're doing exactly what I'm talking about. Your content is powerful, and it's from the inside. It's from your lived experience. It's from the research and the study and the knowledge that you have acquired, and the collection of the knowledge that your team has acquired. And that's my favorite part about having a team. It's like, I care so much about their dreams and about their vision for their lives. And the fact that in this moment in time, their dream is what we're all doing together. Yeah. I mean, that's nirvana. Like that's magic. That like we all get to make money being together, laughing, having fun, creating great things, helping people. I mean, making more money than we've ever even dreamt of making. My whole team, we're all from like, tough, our families did well, but not easy, and really like locked into a possibility of a future that was very sort of one-dimensional as it related to financial success. And the fact that we are like cracking that open, it motivates me more to get out of my own way and to push myself so that I can help them live a different reality and let their kids have a different reality. And, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful gift.
That's what it's all about. We had a team call the other day, and we always do a grateful thing on our team. So it's like like Mondays and Fridays, you talk about what we're grateful for before we start any meeting. And Emily on my team said something along the lines of like, I'm just so grateful to be a part of I had James and Jim Fortin on we did a 3-way like convo Q&A panel for some of our students. And she's like, I'm just so grateful to be a part of that because I want to start a business eventually one day. And then she immediately corrected herself and was like, but don't worry, I'm not leaving. Like, I'm like, no. If you want to start a business, then you want to start a business and we help you support that. When it's time to leave, then you leave. Like
that's right.
There's no shame in stating what you want. And I think that's a beautiful thing of that we get to be as leaders and we get to do that. And I hope everyone listening, there's so many parallels and things that I talk about that Amber's talked about. And it's not a coincidence. Like, it's not like it's not a coincidence that we're both successful, standing up for what we believe in, creating content from the heart, listening to the silence in the universe and all of that. So it's not a coincidence. That's the type of stuff that really allows you to live a life of meaning, of purpose, and be in alignment of what you want to be and create. And so I love all of that. I want to give you an opportunity to let people know where they can like learn more about you, follow what you're doing. And I know you have a book coming out. So I have 5, we always end every episode with 5 questions that are fire, like rapid, just 3-word answers. So we'll do that here in a second, but where can people learn more about you? Where can they get on like a wait list for your book and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Thank you for that opportunity. So the basics, guys, right? At Amber Lilyestrom on Instagram. And I would love it if you guys could share this podcast episode and tag Brandon and I, and so that we can reshare you. I would love to just DM with you and connect there. I'm on Instagram every single day. So if this touched you in any way, please reach out. I would love to connect. Also my website, amberlilyestrom.com. So you can just check out the Inner Circle Mastermind, the Born for This program that we're launching again. Just look at all the programs and my story and all that stuff is there. And then I also have a podcast too, which Brandon, you're going to be on. We actually have our interview tomorrow. I'm so excited.
No, seriously.
So the Amber Lilyestrom Show podcast, I've had some incredible guests on there. Some of our mutual friends, Jasmine Starr, Julie Solomon, James Wedmore, my most favorite author in the world, Mark Nepo, has been on it 3 times. So you guys can check that out. And of course, Brandon will be on it very soon. And the book, this is the expanded edition of a book that I just decided to write back in 2018 and to gift to my audience at my live event. It's called Master Your Money Mind. And it is going to be available around the Black Friday window of time. So if you go to my website, you guys can get all the details and grab a copy of that as well.
Cool. Amazing. And guys, go check it out. Go follow her content. And I can't recommend Amber enough because she truly embraces everything that we talk about. She is a living example of not living a life of fear, going after what you want and just operating from the heart. And I just can't tell you how powerful that is. So go check her out. And I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. There's 5 of them. Okay. And I have not prepared Amber for any of these. So just the idea here is just quick 1, maybe 2 sentences. But if you feel like going off on a rant, then go off on a rant.
Okay.
Ready? Oops. Okay. First question. Should entrepreneurship be taught in schools?
Yeah. #duh. Absolutely. That's going to become the new way and the new wave. So 100% yes.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. For you, what do you think is next for you in the next 5 years, or what's coming for you in the next 5 years?
5 years. I hope another child. We are working on that. I think just more books and scaling the brand and growing in ways that allow me to have a bit more time for my creative pursuits. But yeah, just continue to be more of me.
Love it. If you lost everything, who would be the first person that you call and why?
My friend, Adria Peters, who is an incredible author. She's been a mentor and she's just a dear friend. And she's literally the person that said, I can't believe I'm going to say this. If you ever need to like get rid of a body or whatever, you call me, like I'm your person. So Adria we would figure it out. Like Adria, we would have a plan. We would figure it out. She's just a ride or die. And she's written a book called Quantum Thinking. And we actually have a book coming out in the early 2021 called Quantum Wealth. So she's a badass. Yeah.
I love that. I think I know the answer to this next one, or actually the next 2, but, or next 3. What is for you the biggest defining moment in your business so far?
It was the moment that I walked out on stage at the first Ignite Your Soul Summit, and everything from the sound of my shoes walking on the stage to the music that was playing and the audience clapping was exactly how I pictured it for a million times before throughout my whole life. And it was just this moment of like, I was born to do this, and I'm ready to help these people. And it's giddy up and go time. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. The next one, I think I have a pretty good idea of what this is going to be, but if you had a friend who speaks to you in the same way your inner dialogue speaks to you, would you guys still be friends?
No, absolutely not. And I've had friends that do that. So, and we are not friends anymore. So no, I think, I would still love them deeply, but I probably wouldn't be able to spend a lot of time with them. And so, I would understand that. And that's a hard truth, isn't it, Brandon?
Yeah, it is. Like my ego wants to be like, yeah, of course, because my inner dialogue is amazing.
Yeah,
but
no.
Even now, you always still have those moments.
No, it's just that inner mean girl where she's just really snarky and it's really subtle. It's like, oh yeah, your book cover looks really good, for like a lame book, like she just, it's those kinds of little digs.
Right.
But I've just learned to go, okay, do your thing. We're going to let you finish and then we're going to move forward.
Yeah. Love that. And the last question is, do you follow your head or your heart?
Ultimately my heart, but my head has a lot to say. And I have to do what you said earlier to quiet the mind, to let my heart lead my way. But ultimately, my heart always knows the answer. And I'm also a human design nerd, and I'm a generator with sacral authority, and my sacral always knows the answer.
Yeah.
So between my heart and my sacral, it's like the answer is, I call it the sacral beat drop.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Amber, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so grateful for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And for anyone who has not left us a review on iTunes, head over there, leave us a review. And again, like Amber said, go ahead and share your biggest moment from this podcast and tag both of us in it. And again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you, my friend.
Cool. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.